Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFurio. I'm your host for the show, and I would love if you would subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You could also subscribe on YouTube. And also, when you think of Keys to the Shop, do me a favor and think of somebody maybe who can use these episodes, somebody who would benefit from the content, and send them an episode, send them a clip, post online, share Keys to the Shop. That really helps the show grow, and we want to get this show in the hands of every coffee shop owner and coffee shop professional in the world, and can't do that without your help. So thank you, everybody. Now, I want to just make sure that you know I'm available to answer questions, to have conversations about anything really, coffee related and coffee shop related. All you need to do is reach out, chris@keystotheshop.com. We are not just doing podcasts here at Keys to the Shop, but for the last 8 years, been working with over 85 different coffee shops as consulting and coaching. With consulting and coaching, that means we work one-on-one with owners and their leadership teams to either build a coffee shop the right way the first time, or kind of help with problems that are coming up with a business that is going years now, and that just happens where people need to have some refinement, need to have some solutions to issues that crop up, or people just want to get an outside perspective to see in what ways they might be able to improve an already existing and successful business. So we've worked with lots of folks over the years, and that might be something you would want to talk about. So email chris@keystotheshop.com or check out the links in the show notes, and that'll help you schedule a free discovery call. And we'll talk all about how Keys to the Shop Consulting can help you. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Arto Brick, arto.com, @ArtoBrick on Instagram, and the Pacific Barista Series line of plant-based beverages. You can find more information at the website pacificfoodservice.com. I'm going to talk more in a later part of the episode about that. But for now, I want to jump into our content. Today, we are talking about things that you can replace, distractions. I'm calling them distractions that you need to replace with something that is something you can feel good about focusing on, something that will bring success to your coffee shop, versus what we tend to fall for in the industry. And these are things that come from the industry. They are ideas that we think we need, but when we try to employ them, and we almost subconsciously employ them in our cafes, they are distractions, and they rob us of the energy that we need for other areas of the business. So I'm going to go through about 6 or 7 of these different areas and talk to you about how they are distractions, and then what you can replace them with. We're going to go one at a time, in an orderly fashion, and have that discussion so you know what it looks like to be distracted by this, and then what to do instead. And these are just my suggestions, so take it with a grain of salt maybe. You are the one who I believe should be knowing what's right for your business. And these are things that are going to help you focus on that. So let's start here with speed above all. Speed is a priority of service. That is a distraction for sure. And honestly, speed is important to a degree, but speed is a distraction because it allows us to think in a very simplistic way. We've reduced the value of what we offer in the cafe to the quickness with which we offer it, which means if we're distracted by, or we're obsessed by this, fast, all the drinks have to go out within a minute, within 30 seconds, within this amount of time. When you give these kinds of instructions to your staff, because you heard somebody say it once, that every drink should come out in this amount of time, then that rule becomes the rule. It becomes the thing that guides all of our behavior. If I was able to achieve speed. Therefore, I should be happy. I should be happy with my work. You, as my boss, should be happy with my work because look how fast I went. But you know what happens is that we find people making drinks in a not so great way. We find them making mistakes. We find them cutting corners in order to serve the narrative that speed is the most important thing. And surely speed is important so long as it's there as a result of not wasting time. But if things take the amount of time they take, truly, because that's how fast you could go and still have a quality beverage and still have a quality interaction, and that you've defined what those things look like. So you have to define what is a quality hospitality experience? How much time does it take to ensure that at a certain point the customer doesn't feel psychologically like they're being herded or hurried at the register and throughout their time in your cafe? That's how long the drink takes. It's okay to give good service, to be calm and confident, to give the experience and watch out for delivery of that value. It might take a few more seconds to do this. You can clean your bar as you go. It takes a few more seconds to do this, but it's a part of the service, it's part of care. When we get obsessed with speed, what we begin to see, like I said, are those mistakes. We start to see cutting corners, and we get this reductionist kind of view of what a bar should look like. We're turning and burning. We're slinging spro. We're doing all the things. You could think of a phrase that kind of is tongue in cheek, is supposed to be kind of casual and haha, but really what we have done in the industry, because we are so obsessed with this idea of speed, is we've taught the customer that they have to make up for our lack of attention to detail because we can't be bothered with doing it the right way. We've got to do it a fast way. See, the difference now is that you need to replace speed with efficiency and intentionality. In fact, intentionality is first. First, you have intentionality. What is it that we're trying to accomplish here? I'm not asking you to spend the amount of time that a home barista spends manicuring the little Zen garden in their portafilter. I'm not asking you to do that much. But what I am saying is that there can be intentionality that might take a little bit more time. And if for some reason your arbitrary number that you came up with in your head or you heard from some source that who knows where they got that number is the rule, you're supposed to get it out within 30 seconds. And if what if we get it out in 20 seconds? Ooh, and then we've accomplished something. You've not accomplished anything. Look at what you are accomplishing. Don't assume you've accomplished something. You got to drink out quicker. That's what you accomplished. But is that the goal? The goal is to create a great beverage that elicits delight in the customer when they experience both the ordering, the enjoyment of, or the taking out of that beverage. So, really, it's a lot more than just how fast it goes out. So, I would implore you, let's prioritize intentionality and then efficiency within the scope of what you've defined as important for that beverage and that creation of that beverage. Even if you've got a long line, you still need to insert intentionality before speed, before the efficiency of your bar. The efficiency is going to be part of the process too. We're not asking you to just not think about that, but the efficiency is a servant to the goal, the point, the intentionality. Okay, so that's how you can kind of get rid of the distraction of speed. Stop thinking about that so much. Think about what you're trying to accomplish and how best to accomplish it in a reasonable amount of time to guarantee the consistency of the product, the experience. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now we're moving on to replacing trends because they are a distraction. The strawberry matchas, the whatever, you fill in the blank of whatever those trends are. Will they work for you? Maybe. A lot of people are doing it. Is it something that you should be focused on as a means to deliver success in your cafe? Not primarily. There is no way that you could know whether or not a trend would work in your cafe unless you know your cafe. If you are beholden to trends as something that determines your menu for you, it gets you off the hook for actually paying attention to the kinds of tastes your customers have and what aligns with your cafe's philosophy on sourcing or product and profile and a story in the beverage and things. This is stuff we heard in our Coffee Fest episode that we released recently from Portland. Ryan Zhang, who is owner of Less and More Coffee there, about story in the coffee, in the signature beverages that he creates and his team creates there. So when you simply glom onto a trend, you can easily get sucked into this world of, if it is popular here in the industry, it will be popular here in this coffee shop. Sometimes that's true, but it's a gamble. It's a gamble. If you ever walk through a lobby of a hotel in Las Vegas and thought, boy, that's sad. I think I do. I do, because I'm not a gambler and I see people with that look that you have when you're driving and waiting at the stop sign. You ever look at people's faces there? They just look so grim, so morose. The only difference is that these folks are parked in front of a machine and they're pulling the one-armed bandit until they get a jackpot, which basically never comes. Sometimes that works for some coffee shops. That strawberry matcha might help you make payroll. Okay, I'm not going to debate whether or not you're selling what you've said, hey, this is a trend, we should do it, and it's working. What I'm debating, I think, is that these trends have the ability to get their hooks into our minds and our cultures in the cafe. And it's almost like an invasive species. And it might have flowers, it might have, its own aesthetic value, but it takes over the local flora and fauna of the area, and it is a problem. There's a lot of that kind of thing all over. You think about invasive species, like they're weeds. If you didn't know better, you'd think that they were just like, oh, that's a plant, but it's actually killing other native species. So what do you replace trends with? Or at least what do you put before trends in order to see if maybe something from the pantry of trends in the industry is something you want to take out and then put in your cafe? Well, you have to have a cohesive brand and community rooted menu. You've got to have that local and you thing down. You've got to know, what is it that we are creating that is us? It's rooted in our story, in our community, in our neighborhood. Maybe it's that locally sourced or an homage to history, an homage to your story. These are things that once you build them up as the identity of your brand, now you've got at least a bit of substance that will allow a trend to exist in its presence without overwhelming and taking over that thing. You don't give yourself a fighting chance if you're starting a coffee shop and all you do is create a menu that's completely based only on trends. There's no identity there anymore. You become like everybody else. You've got a wall of syrups, but not much upstairs when it comes to, industry, your cafe's creativity and knowledge. And it's hard to really build that bank of ideas up if the ideas that you only want in your cafe are those things that get you that feeling of security, that because it's a trend, it's going to make me successful. There is work involved, there's investment involved. So the organizational self-knowledge builds that upstairs, the mind of the business. You've got creativity, you've got the ability to do that. I coach people a lot who are opening coffee shops. Let's not just jump into this idea of we're only going to make the trendy drinks, because that doesn't really speak that much to the customer as much as having something that's a little bit more truly unique and it tells a story alongside of possibly some of these drinks that you think are actually kind of fun and we want these. I would challenge you, why do you want them? Have you developed enough of an identity to have a filter through which you can view these other things? So you replace trends with a cohesive brand identity that is community rooted menu, and that community involves you and your staff and your neighborhood. Now you will have a little bit more of a healthy view of trends, and you won't feel as much FOMO because you'll see the benefit of having already developed something that works. And this is not a guarantee that what you come up with in your own world, in the mind of your business, is going to work either. But at least you're doing the work. At least you're exercising that muscle of discretion that trends beg you not to use. They beg you to simply say, don't think, do. It's fun. Try it out. No, just operators, I beg you, don't don't let your mind be an Airbnb, for other people's ideas. Don't let it be something that you sell out multiple times in hopes that one day you'll find a tenant for that. Own the thing, own it. So, the replacing of trends with cohesive brand identity and community rooted menu is the second thing I wanted to talk about today. Now, the next idea here for what to get rid of that is a distraction is clout. Clout is a distraction. Who is it that you're trying to impress with your company's achievements? What is it that you need to be doing with your brand? Who is the customer here? Is it the industry? Did you win a design award for your bags? Did you get some accolades from a national press or global press? I've talked to enough people and been in the industry long enough and seen behind the scenes long enough to know that these things are often hollow victories. The clout that you get with your peers does not mean business success for your coffee shop. What you can replace clout chasing with is steady, close relationships of trust. Starting from local in your area, who is it that you are building trusting relationships with? And then the next outer ring from the small circle to a wider circle to the next circle, that is going to lead you to more sustainable relationships at a distance. So the clout stuff is aesthetics. It's if you win a design award, you feel as though you've achieved something, but we don't know for sure if your business, award winning as it is, or of a particular kind of reputation because of its achievement in a sort of para cafe outside of the cafe world or industry, we don't know what's behind the scenes. Now, baristas who are listening to this, you know for a fact you've worked in some award-winning places that you're just miffed. Like, what in the world? Like, this place is run like a pirate ship. This place is not good. There's lots of dysfunction. There's just like a lot of turnover, but by gum, they have clout, and we don't know why they have clout. And a lot of it's because we have been, as a industry, I suppose, distracted by the idea that we can feel we've achieved something if other people tell us we've achieved something. Trick is, we've got to make sure it's the right people. Who are the stakeholders in your business? It's the customers and your staff and yourself, of course, your family. When you open this business, you've got to make money to support yourself and your family first, then your staff and your customers. And then from there, you can work your way out. So redirecting your energy and focus to seek, deeper relationships of trust, long-term, just consistently adding value to those relationships that are the real stakeholders in the business. If you win an award later on, boy, that'll be based on a whole mountain of integrity within the business versus knowing kind of that we paid to play. We invested a lot of money in artists and graphic design to get award-winning bags, but we can't pay our staff and we can't actually keep up with the raises that we promised people. We can't resource people. We can't fix things in the cafe. The paper towel dispenser still doesn't work, but we won an award. Hollow victory. It's not a victory. It's an indictment in a lot of ways. So let's replace that clout chasing with the pursuit of close relationships of trust over time. Now, next thing that I think, is a distraction is gear obsession. We're obsessed with gear. We love it. It's kind of like when you're into cars and you subscribe to detailing magazines and you're on these blogs and you subscribe on YouTube channels. It's a world that you are building for yourself to reinforce your membership in the club of coffee nerds or whatever subject it is. You have the magazine, the t-shirt, the hat, the forum, the show, and all of that. This is like the constellation that makes up our identity as coffee obsessed people. As you go in the industry, I think if you grow in maturity, you start to realize that you don't need quite as much gear and stuff and shiny things to reinforce your security as a professional. I find for myself, and maybe I see this in others as well, the newer you are in the industry, the more gear obsessed you are. Unless it's your job to actually work with gear, and then you have to be up to date on it and everything else. But the people I know that have been in this for 10, 20, 30 years, they have gotten to this point where they just use one type of dripper at home. Maybe it's even a French press. What? And they make coffee and they drink that coffee and they look out the window. They love life. Their cafes are no longer obsessed with trying to like search for the perfect filter per se. They have a filter. They've worked it well. They know how to use it to make good coffee, and they don't feel a need to do something different with that, to be distracted by new gear, new stuff, new innovative this, innovative that. Innovation is a word it's a toehold into the mind of the industry that does not deliver what it supposes to deliver. So in other words, we have a business. How are we supposed to market this? I know, let's innovate. And usually it's just like we're scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to what it actually does to change the game. We're going to revolutionize the industry. We're going to change the game. Nobody's really changed the game. Rarely do you find anything that's really changed the game. And it's not even a game. That's the thing I think that really fuels gear obsession, is that if you're a professional, there's a big difference between what you do and what somebody who is a home enthusiast does. Home enthusiasts are using this gear, and they have no other means of satisfying the itch of security and membership into that world of coffee nerddom, except to surround themselves with the artifacts and the things, because community is digital. It's online. It's not like home enthusiasts get together as much, where they don't have like a coffee shop where people come in and verify the value of what you do the way coffee shops do. So you can't really, it's not apples to apples when it comes to, should you be as obsessed about gear as the home enthusiast? And that's debatable too, whether an enthusiast really should be as obsessed. But the point is that what we should replace gear obsession with is what is appropriate for what we are trying to accomplish. And can we close that chapter of our mindset? Can we move on in a way? It might be scary because you chose an espresso machine. Now you have to maintain that espresso machine, and you probably, if you maintain it well, you could basically have that espresso machine for a decade, longer. There's lots of ways to refurbish espresso machines. You can have it for a long time. The reason you don't see people doing that is because, again, novelty of the product, look, and promises of marketing and all this other stuff distract us from seeing whether or not the tools we're using are actually accomplishing what we want. And if they are accomplishing what we want, but we're bored, we will invent ways to spend more money on things that we actually didn't need. That's what fuels the quote unquote innovation market around things that are actually just reheated versions of the same stuff. So, really, I think we could be less obsessed with gear, more obsessed with how much value you're getting from the gear you already have. And tools are something that you can use to accomplish your goal. A poor craftsman blames his tools. A lot of people who do really good work do good work on machines that don't look as, amazing as you want them to, but they do the job. And I am somewhat chagrined here to say that I fall into that same category. If I see somebody with an amazing looking coffee bar, I'm like, wow, look at that gear. I mean, that espresso machine is amazing. I know it. The company that makes it is great. Look at those grinders. But then if I see like something that doesn't look as slick and it's not the brand of the moment, I will think to myself, do they know what they're doing? And that's not fair at all, because I've had some amazing shots of espresso from some of the, I wouldn't say dirty. I'm not saying poorly maintained or dirty equipment or non-functional equipment, but was it, the tricked out gear? No, it was just normal. People have been making good coffee on machines for a long time, you know? So we can be less obsessed with gear. Let's not be distracted by seeking constantly. The seeking is for the purpose of acquiring a thing that is used for a purpose. And it has an end, unless you come up against a wall where you think, look, I do need to have something new because this is not functioning anymore, because the temperature stability is way off. Like, oh, I realize, this is something that we need to improve. Then go search for gear. But don't let it be fueled by boredom. Let it be fueled by necessity. And that's only possible if you're paying attention. So that's another thing we need to replace: gear obsession. Well, hey everyone, it's Chris, and here is our opportunity to talk to you about our sponsors today. So we're going to be right back with our list of distractions that we need to replace with the right things to focus on. But first, I want you to focus on Arto Brick. So often we don't pay attention, but then we actually do in the subconsciously and sometimes explicitly, right? The materials that a coffee shop is made from. When you see a place that has amazing tiles, stonework, and hard surfaces, it makes a big difference. Arto Brick is all about bringing your ideas to reality with all different types of hard surfaces, tiles, stonework. And if you are in that world of like, hey, I'm trying to come up with a cool design for my second store, third store, or I'm going to start, but I want it to be something that it stands out. Check them out at Arto Brick on Instagram. Reach out to Armin. Armin will take care of you. Just DM them on Instagram and they will get you set up with conversations, explore what they can do for you. Again, check out that wonderful company in LA, locally made, family run and operated Arto Brick. Now, I want to also talk about the Pacific Barista Series. The Barista Series has been around for a long time. They are the OGs for plant-based beverages and specialty coffee, and they are preferred by baristas around the world still because they create a product that stands up to the heat from steaming. It creates great texture, and it just makes the coffee the star of every beverage. It's a very balanced product. Check them out at pacificfoodservice.com. You can get samples, and you can steam it, taste it, try it, see what I'm talking about. So if you're looking for the best plant-based beverages for your customers, then you should be checking out the Barista Series from Pacific. Competition is the next thing. Somewhat related to clout, but competition is, seeking the status of the industry, like US Barista Championships or latte art competitions. Did you win those throwdowns? So it goes from the individual level to the large industrial level. but competitions are meant to be kind of a pageant. In no way do people think that they are the best barista in the world, and I hope they don't, because the best baristas in the world are people you'll never meet. The best coffee shops are places you'll never go, and so forth, right? But we create these things, and I have participated and created these things as a means to, so, you know, celebrate the industry. If you think of competitions as a celebration instead of a sort of proof of something, then I think it's fine. It's a celebration of a particular skill in a very fake environment that is almost in no way representative of the real work done on the cafe level. It just can't. We've talked about this before. I'm not going to belabor this as much, but I will say competition isn't only industrial in terms of world barista this and that. It's also local. Now, you feel you need to compete with Starbucks, Seven Brew, all the, the chains popping up here and there. You also, by the way, local places. Oh, they just opened down our street. What are we going to do? Well, do what you do. In competition, the only thing you can do is do better at what you currently do. Be curious. This is what we replace the competition mentality with curiosity. Gradual improvement every day, 1% better, whatever philosophy you want to insert there. We are trying to not compete with other people, but we're competing with ourselves. Not worried. We're apprenticing ourselves to the becoming of who we can be by attending to our own ecosystem. A tree does not grow out of competition. It simply is built in DNA. It responds to what it's given as much as it possibly can. And it is not sentient. Some might argue, if you watch that documentary, The Secret Life of Trees, pretty cool. But it is not like we have this sentience that allows us to then either transcend or to completely tank our potential, because we think, oh, I want to be like them, or I have to compete with them. And as soon as you do that, you take your eyes off the road, you take your hands off the wheel, you try to drive somebody else's car while yours is still going down the road, and then all of a sudden you're in the ditch. You're just not. A lot of mixed metaphors here, but the point is, we are supposed to be curious about our own stuff, our own people, ourselves, our systems. Serve the people who already have loved what you've done well. Like we've said in a recent shift break, you've got to build that trust with people and honor their investment into your business. That's what you replace competition with: curiosity, humility, and growth. Growth as a means of service to people and a means of honoring their investment in your business. You need to grow. You need to be profitable in order to continue to be in business, to have a place to welcome people. Hospitality requires financial solvency. Hospitality requires functional systems, people first systems. It requires you to do that work on the inside of the business for the integrity of it, so that people can have the ease and convenience of coming into your space and enjoying it without the burden of wondering if you're going to be around, or if you're too busy looking at other people and you're not paying attention to the stuff that they have already said. We want your menu. Look, we're coming to your cafe. But what we do is we project, ooh, this competitor's coming and they're going to steal our baristas, they're going to steal our ideas, or they're going to steal customers because they're going to have these beverages. People are already coming to your cafe because they like what you have. Now, you can focus on how much better can we get at acknowledging, welcoming, including, executing our beverages. How much better can we get? Can the espresso taste even better? Can the space be even more comfortable and welcoming? Can we build more trust with our people? Can we engage with our community more? There's ways that you can do this that are not born from the insecurity of looking at other people in competition with them. So, all that said, curiosity, humility, growth. This is the stuff you replace competition with. Another thing that's a distraction is industry knowledge, coffee trivia, knowledge about this and that, the processing methods, the history, the global trade routes, the innumerable different types of places to go to learn about the most esoteric pieces of information about coffee. It is not wrong to know these things. It is not wrong to learn about them either. However, we do have a tendency to learn these things as though they were the first things that we needed. And I'm talking from the coffee shop level here, okay? We busy ourselves learning about other people's sector of the industry because we imagine that we have already learned enough about the one that we are currently in. So I've said this before, but if you're a coffee farmer, your thing is coffee farming. If you're a roaster, your thing is roasting. If you're a cafe owner, you run cafes. Do an audit of how much attention you pay and how much reading you do or reflecting you engage in around that area that you have you have the most power to make the most difference versus the other things that you think about and spend your time kind of scrolling through and reading. And if it's imbalanced, then you need to rebalance it or be imbalanced the other way. The industry works when the people who have the power to affect change in those sectors, who are usually the people working in those sectors, use their time effectively and are stewarding that power they have to help stabilize it so that the next person in line, both, from before and after and so forth, they are able to count on your roastery, your cafe. It's stable because you are the expert. You're learning about business. You're learning about operations. You're learning about leadership and communication. These are the tools of your trade. You don't farm coffee. You don't need to know as much about coffee as a farmer does. You need to be in a business partnership and relationship and steward the hard work of that expert. And the customer does this with you. They trust your expertise. They trust your world of coffee shop operations. So instead of trying to fascinate yourself first about coffee or fascinate your baristas about coffee, because the way that you pursue information yourself is the way that you teach information to others. And if you're pursuing functionality, deep expertise, practical knowledge that applies to your business in this area so that you can steward that opportunity well, that's naturally how you're going to equip your staff and others around you to do the work. But if what you do is, like I said before, you have this wide industry knowledge that's not necessarily what you do, but you find yourself in the office and you're just reading a book on like trade routes and stuff, and you put it in the barista manual because you think it's information that's fascinating, that somehow is supposed to that fascination is supposed to translate into people showing up on time and engaging with customers and making mochas well. It just doesn't work. We've tried this so much. I mean, half of the manuals sometimes I read, I'm just like, why are we doing this? Why are we teaching this? This is not what they do for a living. It's not wrong, but it's in the wrong order. So the priority is, again, it's a priority issue. Let's figure out how to be expert in our areas and use most of our attention to do that. And then, later on, if you want supplemental information about Caldi and the goats and the new thing with processing that somebody did on a stage somewhere in the world, okay, great. It's okay. But we only do that because we know that most of the time and energy we spend is being the best we can be at the area of the industry that we've been given. The supply chain relies on us to do the best work we can in this area. And I think cafes are notorious for not learning as much about their work in the cafe and trying to learn too much about everybody else's work. So that's one big thing I think that we need to fix. Now, the last one is certifications. I don't have a problem with certifications. They can be a distraction. They can be an asset. They do have marketing ability. And for me, honestly, some certifications are really just about marketing. And, you know, depending how you look at it. Certifications in this case, if we're talking about roasteries and you're certified through different organizations that guarantee, certain levels of transparency, processing and whatnot, you could do these things as a actual way to allay the fears of your consumer that you somehow cut corners. Say, no, we are organic certified. No, we are certified through whatever. And that is fine. It's okay to do. Where I am really focusing on certifications is actually with barista work and different levels of achievement of, that world of, am I a certified barista, a certified master roaster, and et cetera, with, we'll say para cafe organizations like the SCA. You take a roasting course, you take a barista course and all this other stuff. Okay, it's fine. But let's just remember that unless your cafe has agreed to be 100% directed by the standards that those certifications teach, which don't teach as much as you need to know to do that work in the professional world of roasting, in the professional world of barista work and cafe. Well, there's really not, outside of private schools or hiring a consultant and so forth, very much around coffee shop business. But those certifications don't matter nearly as much as internal quality control systems that verify standards are being met, they are understood, and they are owned by every person, and that's cohesive through all of our operations, whether you have 1 to 10 cafes. That's the most important thing. If you don't have that system internally already made, no amount of sending your staff to Coffee Fest, SCA, having supplemental information delivered by a coffee school or a consultant, and I have taught at all of these places, by the way, it is not a replacement for your cafe having its own internal locus of control, its own internal system that verifies and continues to upskill and give people the tools they need to succeed within your world. In your world, there might be some theories that you can learn from other areas. Supplemental information about extraction theory from an online course is fine, but it's not fine if that's the way you train your baristas. For the love of all that's good, do not think that because you have a membership to Barista Hustle and you put your baristas through that course, you have trained your baristas. You have not. You can, if you send them to SCA and take barista level 1 through 1,000,000, you've not trained your baristas unless you have trained your baristas. It is supplemental at best. It is there as a source to be used in harmony with a pre-existing robust structure that your business needs to develop, or else you're just going to have this churn. You're going to have confusion. And that's unfortunate. We've talked about this before and on the show, but it's worth kind of ending with this power that you have in the cafe is yours to steward. And a lot of what I've talked about, the through line of it is do right for your coffee shop and that world, all the people, the community around it. And then the world outside of it becomes a resource, but not the source. So that's all I have to share. And I hope that you enjoyed that and that maybe it was challenging. Maybe it's helpful. My hope is that it guides you to the next right step for your cafe. Now, if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, As always, I am available, chris@keystotheshop.com. If you're interested in coaching and consulting, whether for a short period of time or a long period of time, small to large projects, working with you as an owner individually or with you and your management team through workshops, either in person or online. There's lots of stuff that we've done over the years, but it has to work for what you need. That starts with a conversation. So chris@keystotheshop.com. And as always, thank you. Subscribe, follow, share. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.